Even though in the society the word Akasha means physical space, but in Shastra the prasiddhi is the word Akasha, the word space. In Shastra the word space means Paramatma. Why? Because the space in the heart cannot be physical space. If you have to refer to some physical space, you don't have to refer to it as the space in one's heart. It is just there, the space, one of the bhutas. Therefore, physical space need not be referred to as the space in one's heart. But if the space is referred to as the space in one's heart, then it is distinct from the physical space. Then it is Paramatma. Why this word space is used for Paramatma? Just as the physical space is untainted by air, fire, water, earth, similarly the Paramatma is not tainted by the five elements. The physical space is not tainted by four elements, whereas Paramatma is not tainted by five elements. Therefore, this can be a simile for Paramatma because this is vast, that is vast. This is unlimited, that is unlimited. This is untainted, that is untainted. And this is all pervasive, that is all pervasive. The physical space is intimate and the Paramatma also is intimate. I don't have to reach physical space. I am already in it. And as Paramatma, I am already it. I am not already in it. I am already it. The way we can say, I am not in water, I am water. That's a much better statement. That is wisdom. I am in water is bhakti. I am water is recognition. We are all in Bhagavan is bhakti. We are all the same truth is jnana. When the table says, I am in the wood, it is a kind of a bhakti. It is a kind of a view. It is short of recognition. And what is recognition? I am wood. I am wood is the recognition. Yes. And therefore, just because the word space is popular as physical space, it doesn't mean physical space. In the society, it is popular to be known as physical space. In the society, space means physical space. In the Shastra, space means conscious being. Prasiddhescha itara paramarshāt sa iti chet na asambhavat. So, if somebody were to say the space in one's heart can only mean Jivatma, the spatial self means Jivatma, itara paramarshat, because there is a because in order to refer to Paramatma, you have to refer to Jivatma. This is a great secret key. Without referring to the error, you can't refer to the fact. ये बहुत ही subtle point है. जगत के बारे में बिना बात करके, without referring to the universe, you can't refer to the source. Supposing the wave thinks that I am a wave, the water thinks I am a wave, then I have to make a mention, you the wave is in fact water. So I have to first I have to mention a wave. This is called anuvada. Anuvada means I have to restate the problem. Then I have to give the solution. Bhaiya, your problem is this. Iska samadhan ye hai. What is your problem? You think you are a form. But you are not a form, you are the substance which is the whole ocean. Therefore, without doing the paramarsha means without referring to the Jivatma, without referring to the Jivatma, you can't make a reference to Paramatma, because in order to unfold the Paramatma, you can only say this Jivatma looking thing is itself Paramatma, ununderstood. This is the only way you can talk. I can't ignore Jivatma and talk about Paramatma. I can't really ignore Jivatma, I can't ignore the Sansari Atma and talk about Muktatma. This very Sansari looking Atma, Jivatma, is ever Nitya Muktatma, ununderstood. But even when it is not understood, it remains Muktatma. Kya karenge? Even when the wave doesn't understand that it is water, it remains water. Therefore, Yatara Paramarshat, just because in unfolding the Paramatma, just because there is a reference to Jivatma, if somebody were to think that Shastram is only talking about Jivatma, iti chet, Dharakasha means only Jivatma, sa iti chet, na, ye galat hai. We make a mention about Jivatma, but we don't clinch the truth with Jivatma. We say this Jivatma is not Jivatma, this Jivatma is Paramatma. Why? An individual self as a form cannot be all-pervasive. This form, because when I say I am a Jivatma, my measurement is only the measurements of the body. Aur kya? My measurements are the measurements of the body. Therefore, when the tailor is taking one's measurements, he is only taking the measurements of the Jivatma. Aur kya? He is only taking the measurements of Jivatma, Mr. So-and-so. Therefore, how can the Daharakasha, which is unlimited, how can that Daharakasha mean Jivatma? It doesn't mean physical space, it doesn't mean Jivatma, but it means Parameshwara. It means Paramatma. So the space in one's heart is neither physical space nor is it individual self. It is unlimited self. It is not a limited self, it is unlimited. Self is always unlimited, ji. And the self is called limited self, only the body, the form is limited. When I am identified with the limited form, then I consider myself as a limited self. If the body is limited, I don't lose anything. But if I equate myself with that limited body and live with the impression that I am limited, that idea that I am limited takes its toll on me. Because it rubs against my nature. It rubs against my nature. It is against my nature. Therefore, any thought that is contrary to my nature it jars on me. Any thought that is contrary to our nature it jars on us. Asambhavat, it is impossible. Physical space cannot pervade the waking dream and sleep. Jivatma also cannot pervade all the three states. Jivatma, this body cannot pervade all the three states. Say it disappears, the body disappears. Therefore, Dharakasha in one's heart does not mean physical space, does not mean Jivatma, it means only Ishvara. ठीक है ना? It is called Dhara Vidya. Dhara Vidya means all understanding about what we call Dharakasha. Dharakasha is the subtle space in one's thought, in one's heart, means in one's thought. In every thought you are there, Ji. That is Dharakasha. In every thought you are there. The I need not be associated with thoughts, because thought is kshetram. You are kshetrajna as different from manaha, buddhi, ahankar, chittam, the body, the senses. All these things come under kshetram, anatma. Bhagavan Krishna ji कहते हैं all these elements, this body, the senses, the mind, the intellect, memory, everything, time, space, everything comes under kshetra. Kshetra means the realm of perception. Anatma, namarupa. Therefore, when you say I, it should mean only the drashta, the subject who is not qualified by the thoughts, etc. Therefore, relate the universe, or you relate yourself to the universe, you as the drashta look at the universe. As drashta, as water, when it relates itself to the wave gets falsified. If the water relates itself to the wave as though it is the mind of the water, if it stands as the mind of the instead of water standing as water, the water has a mind, and if it relates itself, if it relates its mind to the wave, it doesn't get falsified. You should in the same manner as a conscious being relate the universe to yourself, or relate yourself to the universe as the subject. And in that relationship you are Satyam and the rest is Mithya. When the wood looks at the table, when it relates itself to the table as wood, then it discovers only wood is there, there is no table. Thus this Jagat is like the table, and the seer is like the wood. The observer is like the wood. Itara paramarshat sayiti chetana asambhavat. If somebody speculates that the Dharakasha means Jivatma, it is wrong, because it is impossible that Jivatma can be all-pervasive. It is impossible that Mr. So-and-so, who has got mostly joint pains, he has got a knee pain, he is going through naturopathy, and then he comes from the naturopath class to Vedanta. And there he is told, you are all pervasive. That means the person with knee pains. The person with knee pains is all pervasive. Say, the person minus the form is the truth. The person and the mind, I don't have to minus the form, it is eternally minused. In my thinking, I am qualifying myself with the form. Notionally, I feel that the form is me. Otherwise, in fact, the form is not us. Therefore, I don't have to separate the form from me. I have to only discover it is eternally not me. I am not eternally the form. Like the colorless crystal, even if the color reflects on it, the colorless crystal can always say, despite the color being seen in me, I am colorless. I am colorless. I am pure. The subject can never be qualified by the object. If you persist with this one thought, understand the language correctly. The subject, there is no noun-adjective relationship between the subject and the object. That is called not being qualified. A noun is qualified by its adjectives. The body is not our adjective, nor our existence is the adjective of the body. There is no noun and adjective relationship between the body and the self. Persist with this thought, you will get enough insight about yourself. Persist with the reflection. Don't get tired and say, बहुत हो गया, छोड़ो, अब फ्रांस जाएंगे या कहीं जाएंगे, दुबई जाएंगे, थोड़े दिन के लिए डूब जाएंगे. कुछ नहीं मिलता. Whenever you drown in pleasures, you will become breathless. It is better to persist with the Shastram. Ultimately, that is the savior. It is better to persist with looking at one's existence. It is better to persist with looking at one's existence as the subject. Therefore, itara paramarshat saiti chenna sambhavat uttara chet avirbhuta swarupastu uttara chet avirbhuta swarupastu. When we make a mention about Jiva, that Jiva is Brahman, we do not mean Brahman is a quality of Jiva. We do not mean that Jiva is a quality of Brahma. It's a peculiar equation. What looks Jiva is in fact Brahma. It is not a descriptive statement, it is a corrective statement. That is why Vedanta is a Badhaka Shastram. It is a corrective literature. It's not descriptive. In all the descriptive language, you only think in terms of nouns and adjectives. You describe a mango tree becomes the noun. And all your description about the mango tree is its adjectives. Even science cannot transcend the description of noun and adjective. Nobody can transcend this noun-adjective description except the Shruti. Shruti understands there is no noun and adjective relationship between our existence and the rest. Everywhere else, whatever you say, it is all now. Bhojan bada garam hai. What is it? Noun adjective. Bada meetha hai. Noun adjective. You can't really think in terms of, except in terms of nouns and ye aadmi bada bhala hai. बहुत अच्छा आदमी है. What does it mean? Noun adjective और क्या? It is not a corrective statement. क्या है उसमें correct करने का? ये बड़ा लंबा आदमी है. Descriptive. This is called a descriptive statement. Vedanta is not a descriptive book. It doesn't describe the truth because there is no need to describe the truth one's existence. What is most obvious cannot be described. But about the most obvious, there is an error. The I am, the form, is a bull. This is a great bull. Anadi bull. I find myself with the form and I don't look at this contradiction. Subject being viewed as the object is a great contradiction, but I don't take note of it. Sometimes I live a galti, but I don't know that I am living a galti. And therefore, Bhagavan says, when there is a mention of Jiva, when there is a Vakya like this, Jiva is Brahman, we are not describing Jiva with Brahman as its quality, nor we are describing the Brahman with the Jivatvam as its quality. In understandable language, neither we are describing the limited with the unlimited as its adjective, nor we are describing the unlimited with the limited as its property. That's a contradiction. As a descriptive statement, it is stupid. Jiva is Brahman. Jiva, the limited, has a property of being unlimited. वो गलत है. Therefore, avirbhuta swarupastu. Very beautiful. When we say Jiva is Brahman, we mean the swarupa of the Jiva is Brahman. This word Swarupa is not also thought of by humanity. In the actuality. What I am living with is a notion, but there is an actuality. It is almost like the distinction between, in a scientist's language, superstition and science, superstition and the fact. How there is this is a superstition, this is a fact. Vedanta also says this is a notion and this is a fact. That I am a jiva is a notion, that I am a form is a notion, that I am the unlimited conscious being is. As a conscious being, one is choicelessly unlimited. You cannot be conscious and still be limited. Reflect on that. In order to be limited, I have to be inert, an object of thought or thought. If I am neither an object of thought nor a thought, then I cannot be limited. It's not possible. Therefore, when we say Jiva is Brahma, we are talking about the Avirbhuta Swarupa of the Jiva as Brahma. What is Avirbhuta Swarupa of Jiva? The understood nature of Jiva. The factual, the actual nature, the self-evident, obvious nature of Jiva. One is an obvious notion. The notion is an obvious notion, and the reality also is obvious reality. One is obvious as a thought, the other is obvious. One is obvious as a contradiction, the other is obvious as a fact. Both are prasiddha. Uttara Cheda Virbhuta Swarupastu. And therefore, reference to Jagat doesn't mean we are clinching the whole Vedanta with Jagat. Reference to Jiva does not mean we are clinching the whole Vedanta with Jiva. We talk about Sansara, but that doesn't mean the Vedanta clinches everything with Sansara. ये सारी बातों को संप्रदाय समझाती है. ये संप्रदाय जो है, this great tradition of teaching, if a person studies Vedanta with the Bhashyam, etc., he understands it's very honest literature. And very honestly unfolds the truth. But a man, you see, just as you use everything for your pleasure, you use Vedanta also for your sense pleasure. जल्दी जल्दी 2-4 श्लोक memorize कर लो, फिर भक्त लोगों को बनाओ. You are very, very smart. Human beings are very smart. They always try to use the Shastra. चलो थोड़ा अब इसका results पाएंगे, इसका आनंद लेंगे. Because once you get भक्त लोग, I tell you, you are the Raja. You are the Raja because भक्त लोग do everything for you. They don't allow you to spend any money. They look after all, they meet all your expenses, and over and above that they give you dakshina also. Who doesn't want to have bhaktas ji? Therefore, the temptation for sense pleasure is not easy to sideline. It's not easy. The temptation for pleasure. But if a person can resist the temptation for pleasure and go into the Shastra, you can admire its sincerity in unfolding. You can appreciate its great commitment to unfolding the truth. For that you have to say, kya karna chodo. Pleasures there are so many people to enjoy the pleasure. Why should I also join the gang? Chodo. Let me go into, is it true that the self is truth? Is prakar somebody with Vairagyam goes into the Shastra, then he understands the great honesty and the great sincerity that the tradition shows and the scripture shows and the Bhashyam shows in unfolding the nature of the truth. And therefore, we talk about samsara, but we don't clinch with it. Samsara is talked about, but it's not clinched. But it is clinched as Bhranti. We talk about Jivatvam, but it is clinched as Bhranti. And the Swarupam is clinched as the unlimited. Therefore, a mere paramarsha, mere mention of something doesn't mean that is the topic. That is the topic clinched. Just because there is a mention of samsara, that doesn't become the topic. Therefore, a lot of Purvapakshis raise objections on the basis of a mere paramarsha. जीव का जिक्र क्यों किया शास्त्र ने, संसार का जिक्र क्यों किया? इसका मतलब संसारी टॉपिक है। जीव का जिक्र क्यों किया? इसका मतलब जीव ही टॉपिक है। देश काल का जिक्र क्यों करते हैं? इसका मतलब वही टॉपिक है। Hey, what are you talking? Without doing the jigger of the sarpa, I can't talk about the rajju. Rajju is what is the topic, what is unfolded. We unfold the rope, we only do the jigger of the sarpa. We only make it jigger. You understand jigger? So I try Sanskrit, and if it doesn't work, then you go to Urdu ji. But क्या करेंगे? If I say परामर्श, किसी को समझ में नहीं आता है। जीव का परामर्श, जगत का परामर्श, संसार का परामर्श, समझिए परामर्श क्या होता है? जिक्र करना। अच्छा जिक्र, ओ समझ में, प्रतिपादन नहीं है, जिक्र करना। Therefore, a lot of Purvapakshis raise objections on the basis of the jigra that is done by the Shastra of the Jiva, Jagat, etc. The next Ji. Anyarthascha Paramarshah Anyarthascha दिस हम जीव का जिक्र करते हैं उसकी स्वरूप को बताने के लिए। अन्यार्थ, फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ समथिंग एल्स। We do the paramarsha of the Jagat to talk about its source. Here this Jagat is not a block of things lying there, don't think. Sometimes the thoughts look like a block of things in front of you. Like dream is all perceptions, but they look like a block of things lying there. But actually none of them is a thing, it is all perception. In the truth there can only be a perception, there can only be a wrong adhyasa, atasmin tad buddhi, a wrong perception about itself and looking like a block of things like that. Sarpa is a perception, but it looks like a thing lying there. मैं सर्प को देख रहा हूँ. A mere perception divides itself into perception and object of perception. If you can capture this one statement, you are a genius, I am telling you. It is just perception dividing itself into an object of perception, and वहाँ पर सर्प है जिसको मैं देख रहा हूँ. वहाँ पर सर्प है जिसको मैं देख रहा हूँ. Actually, Sarpa is not an object of perception. Sarpa is perception, distorted perception about the rope. I am not seeing the snake, I am seeing the rope wrongly. I am not seeing any Jiva, I am seeing Brahman wrongly. I am seeing myself wrongly as Jiva. Not that there is a thing called Jiva. Me as limited is never there. It is only my perception. Me as a form is a mere my perception. Me as an individual is just my is a perception. And seeing others also as individuals is a mere perception. Me, thou, he, she, it, all these things are perceptions, but they look like things, abiding, solid, abiding things. Like the snake looks like a solid thing, but it's not a thing. Therefore, Whenever, if I am, it's only perception that I can't even say it's my perception, it is a perception that I am a jiva. It is just a bhranti. You can't own bhranti, it is my bhranti, your bhranti, his bhranti, etc. That's all wrong. Because the very idea of my and thou and he and she is a part of bhranti. You can't say it is an individual bhranti. If it is a sadhi adhyasa, if it is a rajju sarpa adhyasa, can we say it is my error, etc. But that I am deha is not my error. I am deha, I am an individual is an error. Is the error about the truth. Is an error about the truth. Therefore, when there is a jigra of the jivatma, when we do the jigra of the sarpa, the purpose is to unfold the rope, which is the actuality of what is seen as sarpa. Sarpa ka hi swarup rajju hai. Therefore, from the sarpa point of view, rajju is its swarupa. From the rajju point of view, there is no sarpa. From atma drishti, there is no jagat. From jagat drishti, there is atma, anatma. अनात्म दृष्टि आत्मा है. अनात्म दृष्टि आत्मा है. आत्मा अनात्मा दो है. क्षेत्रज्ञ दृष्टि, फ्रॉम द क्षेत्रज्ञ दृष्टि देयर इज ए क्षेत्रम एंड क्षेत्रज्ञ. From the observed point of view, there is observed and observer. From the observer point of view, there is only the observer. This is called adhyaropa apavada nyaya. Looking at the truth from the external point of view. When I look at myself from the nama-rupa drishti, that is called adhyaropa drishti. When I look at myself from my own point of view, that is apavada. Then in that there is nothing. It is only the other. Yes. When you look at yourself and from your own point of view, you are neither a wife nor a husband. As a conscious being, you are neither a wife nor a husband. Nor a father, nor a son. Only a silent, conscious being. Therefore, from the truth drishti, truth alone, he is nothing else. From the error drishti, there is error and the truth. And from the error drishti, there is a shastram. And from the error drishti, there is a teaching. And from the error drishti, Guru Sishya Sampradayam, Parampara. From the error drishti, Ramayana, Mahabharata. From the Satya drishti, from the truth drishti, there is neither, there is nothing. From the Sushupti drishti, there is no Jagrat nor Swapna. From the Jagrat drishti, we talk about Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. But from Sushupti drishti, there is no Jagrat, no Swapna. So there are 2 points of view. One is the Adhyasa point of view, the mistake point of view, and the actuality point of view. The actuality. Therefore, if there is a paramarsha of the Nama-rupa, it is only to unfold the Swarupa. Ho gaya ji. Next, the last sutra of this adhikaranam called Daharadhikaranam. Do you remember? Daharadhikaranam. What could be the space in one's heart? The Shruti says the space in your heart is the truth. The space in your heart means what? The subtle being in all your thoughts is the truth. अल्पश्रुतेरिति चेत् तदुक्तम् अल्पश्रुतेरिति चेत् तदुक्तम् अल्पश्रुतेः. The Shruti says, let me read one Shruti. दहरः अस्मिन्नन्तराकाशः यदि आकाशस्य अल्पत्वं श्रूयमाणं परमेश्वरेण उपपद्यते. Purvapakshi says, Dahara by itself means small. I interpreted it as subtle. Whereas Dahara can also mean thoda sa, chota sa. In order to make my teaching clear, smooth, at the very outset, I interpreted it to mean the Sukshma. Once we interpret it as the Sukshma, then you don't have many difficulties in explaining. But supposing you interpret as a small Dahara, then you have to all the time fight battles. So here the Purvapakshi interprets the word Dahara in the sense of small. How can the small be unlimited? This small space in your heart, how can it be unlimited? For which the Sutrakara says, Na. This has already been answered. It has been answered in two ways. Number one, it is not small but it is Sukshma. Why? Because the Shruti says this very space, this very small space is bigger than the outside space, it says. It's a contradiction. This small space is bigger than the outside space, it can't say. This subtle space is bigger than the outside space. So therefore there is certain logic to be followed. The Shruti doesn't say this small is the unlimited. Another way of interpreting is, if you still persist with the idea that the Dahara means only small, I say it identified with this body, the unlimited looks small. It is mistaken to be small. It is not small. Sahasra Sirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishthad Dashangulam. He says, this unlimited Purusha is only just, he abides as a Vamana, as a 10 inches. Means what? Even though he pervades the whole universe, he thinks that he is only this form. Sahasra Sirsha, all heads are his heads. Sahasra Sirsha Purusha. Sahasraksha Sahasrapa. All eyes are his eyes. All ears are his ears. Sarvata Vritva. Sabhumim Sarvato Vrita. He pervades the whole universe. Atyatishtat Dashamulam. And he transcends this body. It transcends this body. Even though by nature it transcends the body, until one understands, one thinks, I am only 10 inch. मैं तो एक आधा फुट का हूँ. I am insignificantly small. When you want to refer to insignificantly small size, then you can just 2-4 inch का हूँ, 10 inch का हूँ, 1-2 फुट का हूँ. It doesn't mean anything. Don't look for, Swamiji, what is the great significance of this 10 inches? Why not 9 inches? Why not 11 inches? Bhagwan. It simply means insignificantly small. Therefore, even though Dharakasha is unlimited, man identifies himself with this small body and feels he is small. Therefore, what looks small is unlimited. This is a very, very, very compromised interpretation. But the actual thing is, to pehle bata rakhe hain. Dharam does not mean small. Dharam means Sukshmam. Why? Because Dharam can means Alpam as well as Sukshmam. As per the context, you better understand, better interpret the word Dhara in the sense of Sukshma. Clear, ji? I have completed Dharadhikaranam. Now let us do another 5 minutes, otherwise you will say, Swamiji, आज स्वामी जी ने 15 मिनट पहले छोड़ दिया. So, next sutra. We'll just begin the next adhikaran. Anukrite tasya cha anukrite tasya cha. This is called Anukriti Adhikaranam. Anukriti means, it's a peculiar word. Anukaranam in Hindi means, imitating. Anukaranam means imitating. Anukaranam also, in Sanskrit also it means, जैसे दूसरा जैसे राम करता है वैसे लक्ष्मण भी करता है. That is called Anukaranam. अनुकरण करो. हमारा गुरु जी used to say, fake it and make it. That is called anukarana. Imitate and learn. Certain things have to, like languages, etc., you have to imitate. But here, anukaranam in Shastra means something. This is a problem, this language, the same language has to be used for the Vyavahara. And the same language also is used in the Paramartha, in the Shastra. So what happens is we read into that language all that we know of in the Vyavahara. Now we can't have a separate language. Because if you have a separate language, then it is very difficult to teach. There is not a great distinction between the connotations of the language in this Vyavahara and the same connotations of the language in the Shastra. There can be a slight, so you have to draw the attention of the students to those marginal distinctions, so that you can enjoy. Yes, it's true. You can enjoy the scripture. We have a arati, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti guto yamagni tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. In this manner we have a arati. It is said, tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Brahman shines and everything else shines after it. It has borrowed light. This borrowed light is what is called anukarana. The sun shines, the moon shines after it. That is called anukarana. Enjoying the borrowed light or giving out the borrowed light. Therefore, the Jagat has only the borrowed light. It emits the borrowed light. I am going to tell you very interesting, very important points. The evidence of the universe doesn't belong to it. The evidence of the universe is the evidence of your existence. Wow. The evidence of time is your evidence of your existence. The evidence of time, space, form, thought, what we call samsara, it doesn't belong to it. Like the evidence of the snake doesn't belong to the snake. The evidence of the snake doesn't belong to itself. The evidence of the snake belongs to the rope. Therefore, the Atma is everything else looks to be. इसको इस तरह से नहीं समझना चाहिए. The self illumines itself and the universe is illumined by the self, but unillumined it is always there. We say the very existence of the universe as the borrowed light. It is a borrowed existence. Therefore, my first statement is better. What looks existent, that existence doesn't belong to it, it belongs to the seer. The dream's existence doesn't belong to the dream, it belongs to the dreamer. This is what is called borrowed prakasha. This is called anukaranam. Okay, na? Now the Purva Pakshi comes up with, he has to say something, and every Purva Pakshi is a scientist, understand? He has logic with him. Sir, if the sun shines, it is because of the shining material in it. If the moon shines, it has the shining material in it. If the candle shines, then there is a shining material in it, not because of Brahman. If the diamond shines, there is some shining element in it. This is what is called prakasha dhatu. There is a dhatu in it. The sun shines because there is a prakasha dhatu, the shining element in it. Therefore, the sun borrows its light from that shining element. The moon also borrows its light from the shining element. Everything that shines has a shining dhatu in it. There is some shining dhatu in it. Why do you bring in Brahman here? After all, the sun is physical, and if it has to borrow its shine, it has to borrow from the physical. If the fire has to borrow its shine, it has to borrow from some heat element, some heat dhatu, some shining dhatu. So why do you connect the physical to the non-physical? Why don't you learn to connect the physical to something physical? When the non-physical is not sense-evident, how can you connect the physical to the non-physical? So the non-physical becomes a matter of belief then. The physical is evident. And if you connect it to the non-physical, where is that non-physical if it is not sense-evident? If you say it is the observer, what is this so-called observer? It is nothing but this form. It is also physical. Thought is physical. Brain is physical. We are all just physical. Either you connect the physical to physical dhatu, or you connect the physical to the physical jiva. But don't connect everything, don't connect the physical to the non-physical Brahman. Iti who says? Purva says. In answer to that we say, Anukrute etasya cha. Hey, here we are talking about Anubhati. Anubhati is different. If something shines and something else shines after it, between them there is no noun-adjective relation. If the sun is physical and the dhatu is also physical, between them there is a noun and adjective relation. Therefore you dismiss the noun and adjective relationship The entire Vyavahara, our entire trends, the trends of science, everything is gone in one go. It's all gone. In that sense, we say truth is not describable. Why? Because it doesn't have physical properties. It is not a noun with adjectives. Sometimes when we say truth is indescribable, that doesn't mean it cannot be, it is unteachable. Hey Bhagavan. It is not unteachable, it is not ununderstandable. It is teachable and understandable. It is understandable without objectification, it is teachable without being described. But that we misunderstand. Sometimes we say it is not describable because it is not a noun with adjectives. Then what do? We give up. Ye to indescribable. Therefore, kya karna? It is beyond understanding. Therefore, what do? Then our thinking, our understanding process stops. Looking at ourselves stops. Then we just become closed with eyes closed and mind closed and be quiet. Then we again get into that mystical stance, mystical rapture, and do like, oh, what do you get out of it? If the water thinks, oh, it will still feel I am a wave. Therefore, mysticism doesn't work, ji. Therefore, between what shines and what shines after it, there is no noun, and that is called anukarana. So, इस शब्द का सही अर्थ को लेके पूर्व पक्षी को हम Pratyakhyan, we dismiss the Purva Paksha on the basis of the right connotation of the word Anukaranam. Anukaranam, wherever there is Anukaranam, there is no noun and adjective relation. But if you look upon the shining element in the sun, it becomes its adjective. Whereas what shines and what shines after it, in the Shastra it is said, what shines is the Satyam, what shines after it is Mithya. There is Satyamithya Bhava. Whereas between the sun and the Prakasha Dhatu, there is no Satyamithya Bhava. Between the tree and the greenness, there is no Satyamithya Bhava. If the tree looks green because there is some pigment element, there is some pigment, there is some something in it, chlorophyll or what is it that makes the tree chlorophyll? There is a chlorophyll that makes the tree green. That's called a green element. Now between that green element and the tree, is there a Satyamithya Bhava? There is only noun and adjective relation. Similarly, between the sun and that shining metal, shining element is only noun adjective relation. But between the observer and the observed and the Atma and Anatma, there is no noun adjective. This is Satyamithya Bhava. Therefore, the person who is living is Satyam. That is why when a person is carried to the cremation, what do they call? Ram Naam Satya Hai. Ram Naam Satya Hai. Yes, joke. This was Satyam. It is Satyam. But they recognize it after the death. What is the use? After death, supposing you recognize to Satyam. उसमें क्या मिलता है? You see, you should think of Bhagavan, you should think of the truth when all is well with you. When all is well with you, truth should be the topic. When you are depressed, then you can go for little pleasure so that you can थोड़ा आनंद ले सकते हैं, थोड़ा you can control your depression. When you are depressed, you can't attend the classes. Can you? सब ठीक होते हुए भी नहीं आते रेगुलरली. नहीं होने से कहाँ से आते हैं? वो नहीं होता. Therefore, when all is well, truth should be the topic. Yes. वो खाते हैं ना कबीरदास, जब सुख है, सुख में जब भगवान का नाम लेते हैं, दुख क्यों आदि का? Something like that? Yes. जब सुख में भगवान का नाम लेंगे, दुख क्यों आएगा? Because dukkam is a different thing from discomfort or shortage of wealth. Dukkam is very spiritual. Dukkam is not empirical. Man's struggle is spiritual. Spiritual reason. Fundamentally, for every problem, the reason is spiritual reason. ठीक है जी. This anukrite hai tasya cha, this particular anukriti adhikaranam we will begin with when we come back from the vacation. In the meantime, this is, you are still alive, we are all alive. This is a situation to think of our being. Enjoy yourself, go for long walks, drink a lot of water, and don't fight with anybody. Be a peace-loving person. कोई कुछ कहते हैं भूल जाओ, हे भगवान इनको दंड दे दो, मेरे बस का नहीं है. इनको ignore. Learn to ignore, you will be more peaceful. जैसे भगवान कृष्ण शंकराचार्य ने बृहदारण्यक भाष्य में कहा, if you registered it, he said, ये लोग इस तरह से अर्थ निकालते हैं क्योंकि ये लोग संकुचित बुद्धि वाले हैं. संकुचित बुद्धि मतलब नैरो माइंडेड पीपल. तो इसलिए इसमें कोई दोष नहीं है. If a narrow-minded person interprets the Vedanta in a narrow way, उसमें दोष क्या आएगी? भगवान से इसमें कोई दोष नहीं, छोड़ो. Like that. If a jiva makes mistakes, if a jiva bullies, etc., etc., ठीक है, वही होगा. Jiva can only do that. छोड़ो. Just ignore, because at least for the sake of enjoying, in order to enjoy the great reflection on the truth, on your being, which is at once the truth and non-dual, for the sake of, that's what we mean, for God's sake, ignore them. For God's sake, ignore them. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.